Hello, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. This is Saturday's video today because I couldn't get Audacity to work and I just rage quit out of it. And today it's fine. It was just obviously having a moment, so there's that. Anyway, this is England's regional haunts, myths and folklore, and today's focus is on London. London, or Londinium, was first founded by the Romans around 50 AD. It first began life as a military outpost beside the River Thames, and its closeness to the river, yet being far enough inland to be protected, made it a great place for trade, and so Londinium quickly became the centre for finances in the Roman Empire. That is, of course, until our girl Boudica gave London a slight barbecuing. But then from the ashes, another London grew, and since then, London has grown into this vast, rich tapestry of legends, myths and folkloric traditions. So, from ghosts to hot cross buns, here are 8 old stories from London. This is the Old Lady of Threadneedle Street, the Bank of England, which has stood in place since 1694 and acts, just as it did for the Romans, as the government's banker. It was given the nickname by a political cartoon penned by Thomas Gilray in 1797. The nickname itself transposed onto a Sarah Whitehead, whose brother Philip Whitehead was a former disgruntled employee of the Bank of England. Philip was tried and executed for forgery in 1811, but this news was never given to his sister Sarah, who one day turned up at the bank to visit her brother, only to be told of his death. The shame and sadness brought upon Sarah by her brother's crime and then its subsequent punishment turned this poor woman's mind into literal jelly, and she would haunt the bank every day asking for her brother. Dressed in a long black dress and a long black veil, Sarah would accost anyone that she could get her hands on, asking for her brother. She did this for 25 years. And when she finally went into her own final sleep, she was buried in St Christopher le Stocks's churchyard that abutted onto the back of the bank. But this graveyard was soon swallowed up by the bank and it became the gardens, and her ghost has been seen roaming around since. The Gargoyle Club began life in 1925 as a private membership club that was owned and operated by the aristocrat David Tennant. Before that, the building was a Georgian townhouse. The shadowy figure of a woman has been seen drifting around the club, leaving in its wake a very strong smell of gardenia perfume. It is said that the ghost is none other than Nell Gwyn, the most favoured of all of King Charles's mistresses. The club closed in the 70s and became the Nell Gwyn Strip Club in the 1980s. In November 2009, it became a hotel. Hanbury Street is the site of the death of Annie Chapman, a victim of the infamous and unknown serial killer, Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper terrorised the streets of London for about 3 months in 1888. Annie Chapman was a woman who was just down on her luck after the death of a child and a divorce. She lived in lodging houses and scraped out a living by making needlework, selling flowers, and prostitution. At about 2 a.m, Annie was compelled to go out into the streets to earn money for her lodgings, and she was seen by one witness about 5 a.m. talking to a man, and then by 6 a.m. her body had been found, and she had become part of a puzzling and horrifying legend. And now her spore spirit is said to haunt the site, though as it looks now, I imagine she'll go mostly unnoticed, except by those few whose antenna may pick up her signal. St Mark's Road to Cambridge Gardens is purported to be the haunt of a ghostly bus that speeds along at night and vanishes. Spotted in 1934 by a man and wife, it stopped to allow them to board, but sped off and vanished before their very eyes. At the Savoy Hotel, precautions were taken to avoid having 13 people at a table. If such a party arrives, then 14th place is laid for a wooden cat known as Caspar, who will sit at the table throughout the meal. The tradition fell into place after a meal for 14, held by diamond magnate Wolf Joel, had one guest drop out, and another jokingly predict that the first to leave the table would die. Unperturbed by the prediction, Wolf Joel left first and was shot weeks later. Afterwards, parties of 13 would have a member of staff join them at the table until the wooden cat was sculpted in 1927 and taking the place of the staff as the guardian of good luck. St. Bartholomew the Great is a church first founded as an Augustinian priory by Rahir in 1123. It shares its foundation with St. Bartholomew's Hospital and is said to be haunted by Rahir's disgruntled spirit after one of his sandals was disturbed and stolen. There is also a long-standing Good Friday tradition in which sixpences were placed on the gravestone of a woman who set up a beneficiary to provide for 21 widows in perpetuity. The coins are collected by the women, who then step over her tomb and collect a hot cross bun. Both the money and the buns are provided by the church. The ritual could possibly be a holdover from sin eating, a method of removing the sins of the dead by eating cake over their graves. Some 200 hot cross buns used to hang from the ceiling of the Widow's Son pub in Devon's Road, Bow Common. It is a tradition born from a sad tragedy. A widow who was said to once run the pub had lost her son at sea, who had written to say that he would be home for Easter. Every year she baked hot cross buns and set aside one for her son, just in case he came back. A tradition stemmed from that, where sailors would add a bun to the netting and in return would receive a free beer. When she died, the pub was named the Widow's Son in honour of her, and the tradition continued, with some of the buns being over 200 years old. Sadly, a fire in the pub in the 80s destroyed most of the buns in their netting, which is a little ironic since the root of this ritual probably comes from an older ritual that buns baked on a Good Friday would have a restorative and curative power, and that the buns would protect the houses from fire. In the 4th century, St. Blaise, a Christian martyr, touched the throat of a boy choking on a fish bone and he was saved. Since then, the miracle is commemorated on February the 3rd by the blessing of the throats at St. Elfrida's Church, where churchgoers with throat issues can kneel at the altar and become blessed at the throat by the priests and so be cured. Those were 8 ghost stories and superstitions from Old London. Next stop, I'm going to do the south of England. So if you've got a regional ghost story, legend or tradition that you want to share, plonk it down in the comments, and if you like, I'll include them in my next video in your area. If not, then just tell me where you're from and I will dig through my books and that and find a ghost story from where you are. Anyway, thank you for watching my video and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.